Okay, I'm going to call the Parks and Rec Advisory Board meeting to order for January 19th at 7:07 p.m. Clerk, can you please take a roll call?
Mr. Bricker?
Here.
Ms. Cunningham?
Here.
Ms. Hibbinger?
Here.
Ms. German? Ms. Lamar? Mr. Politis?
Present.
Mr. Ratliff? Ms. Smith? Councilman Rohr? And Chairman Lash.
Here. Can I do a motion for everyone that's gone? Because we don't have enough really.
You can't vote.
Yeah. So we're just going to move to, due to the number attending, we'll move to item number 6 with Roger, update of YMCA.
Chairman Lash, you might just note for the record that you don't have a quorum, so you can't be taking any action when you're doing these items.
So noting for the record that we do not have a quorum, so we're not taking any action tonight, but we are going to go through the updates.
Sounds good. You guys have this in front of you?
Yes.
Great. Always new and exciting stuff happening. The Healthy Weight in Your Child class is a really amazing class. It's for kids who are in the 90th percentile of weight, and they are recommended by a doctor or a nurse, school nurse, and this has been going on. They're about to finish their session. It's an evidence-based class, and it's a parent and child class. This is a free class, and it comes along with a free membership. The only way we do that is through raising funds and stuff to make those classes happen. Registration has started for Safety Town, and people are already calling, which is amazing to me always. That will be June 6th. We'll be at Willis again for Safety Town. Sports, our third through sixth basketball season. That's the one at Mingo and was here in the city before. The Y came is going strong. In fact, they have more kids this year than they did last year. He told me about 20 more than last year, which is always a sign of a healthy program. And you can see the number of teams there. Following up on the success of the fall soccer league, we did an indoor soccer tournament in November, and it went well. The people who came enjoyed it quite a bit. Numbers weren't amazing, but kind of kept their interest. And then baseball and softball registration will be starting at the beginning of February, and people are already calling about that, so that's exciting.
Roger, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Has there been any discussion about having some of these youth sports start younger than 3rd grade? Like, is there a basketball that's paid?
Yeah, so kind of the history and what's exciting is about the Y is it used to be just 3rd through 6th when the city ran basketball.
Okay.
With the Y, we now run, we start basketball actually at age 3. We start youth sports at age 3, which is just about the time where you could actually start doing anything.
Right. Okay.
So we offer basketball skills class from ages 3 all the way up to ages 11. But the leagues run starting kindergarten through 2nd grade. That's at the Y. Then they go to Mingo for 3rd through 6th. And then we started a league that was 7th through 9th. Okay. And this year that league has actually extended, so it's 7th through 12th grades. So basically we are covering all grades, which is really cool. We actually kind of fun. Thad Mata is coaching one of the teams for the team. It's his daughter's basketball team, so you'll see him at the Y. They're actually doing better than his real team, so that's not saying much. So we do, and then looking at other sports too, like T-ball and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, age 5 seems to be about the bare minimum. Soccer, age 5, age 4 actually in soccer. So. Great question though. Yeah, that's a city. The city rec is the 3rd through 6th. The K through 2 league just restarted. Our 2nd session starts this coming week for basketball, and the teen league is going on now. It started, and we've actually we've partnered the teen league with our YMCA down in Liberty, and they're actually coming up to play here in Delaware. So more people are actually coming, and because we have a partnership with the Y down there, it's the same program, it's the same price. Instead of having two very small leagues, we now have one larger league, and we're able to offer more options, which is really cool.
Great, thank you.
Moving on to adult programs and classes, the diabetes prevention program, you've probably heard about this, continues to go strong. The Live Strong program, it actually just completed their program. It's a program for anyone who's been through cancer treatment. They just finished. And then we have adult beginner swim lessons at Mingo in June and adult intermediate swim lessons at the YMCA in July. I think that's an addition to programming that was offered, which is something we always like to do, is reach out to those different audiences that may not been reached. As far as adult sports, we do have the open volleyball is going strong, 7:30 at the Y. We have open Monday, Wednesday night basketball, and the Y is now open to 11 p.m. and that's a very big peak time now for on Monday, Wednesdays for basketball. We have people coming from all over for that, and it's becoming kind of a hot spot for late evening basketball. You know, Mingo closes at 8, so if you're a dad or whatever, you have to put the kids to bed and all that stuff, you can still come out. So that's been great. Special events, we have the calls from the North Pole. We made about 40 phone calls. That's a volunteer-based program. We get a sheet with the kids' info, what they want for Christmas, and then we call and, hi, I'm Sprinkles. Yeah. So it's a lot of fun. That's about a typical number of calls, yeah, nothing really to report there. The registration for the daddy-daughter dance and the mother-son superhero party, we changed the registration process a little bit this year due to the selling out of the mother-son superhero party last year. So we wanted to make sure that city residents had first opportunity. So we opened up registration on January 1st for city residents only. You actually had to come to the YMCA to register so that we could check residency. So there was a full, basically a full week there for city residents to sign up ahead of anyone else. Emails were sent to everybody with the new registration process. So, and it was also put out onto our social media. So hopefully we reached most of our city members as best we could compared to for the people who had come and potentially wanted to come. Those events are both coming up. They're about a month apart. The Daddy-Daughter Dance is at Source Point. That was the Council for Older Adults in the past. And the Superhero Party is March 18th at Mingo. And we always need volunteers for those. On the back, some other big special events. The Orange Crush Invitational is a huge swim invitational, probably the biggest event that we do at the Y as far as people coming. They literally take over the gym, and like you can't barely walk through the gym. It's incredible. So that does affect the use of the gym, obviously, for those days, but it does get to highlight our building, and it's become a very popular event. They love coming to our pool and our facility. And then we have the Riptide Triathlon. It's an indoor triathlon on Sunday, February 7th. I've participated in this for the last few years. It's a great event. You bike. It's a little different than most triathlons in that it's 15 minutes and then you stop. So if you're not, the Tom Homan swimming style, after 15 minutes, whether you've done one lap or 20, you're done. So it's a really nice beginner triathlon. There's no distance. Everyone's kind of on the same page, all finishing together, starting together. So I encourage anyone to get involved with that, especially when it's perfect. It's in the cold weather when there's not a lot of outdoor options normally. So that's coming up as well. And that's everything I have on this report. But of course, there's a lot more things going on, and happy to answer any questions about anything you guys may have.
Anybody have any questions?
Breakfast with Santa?
Breakfast, yeah, we had, yeah, we had breakfast with Santa. We moved the breakfast with Santa from the community room to the new National Guard gym, which allowed us a lot more space. We had about the same number of registrations, but because the space was so much bigger, it actually felt like a smaller event. So we're kind of talking about that, looking to the future. One thing we are very cautious of is kind of looking and seeing, most Ys do a breakfast with Santa, but there's like 10 breakfasts with Santas in Delaware. Do we need a breakfast with Santa? So I was just talking with Jeremy, I was saying we might do like a pizza with Santa event on a Friday night, have it be a little bit more casual, a little bit more active, something like that. So, we continue to evaluate the programs. Having the new National Guard space obviously is great, allows us to do a lot more. We were able to get a temporary food permit for the event, to actually cook in the kitchen over there, if you haven't seen, which is incredible. So yeah, good times.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Regarding the superhero, I know that was feedback from last year because of the sellout and some of Delaware residents. What was the feedback with having to have them come down there? Did you hear anything? Did people get signed up that hadn't been able to last year, or how'd that work out?
I haven't really heard any specific feedback, negative or positive, on it. We did have quite a few people sign up during that time.
Okay.
The reason we didn't open up to the online community is because there'd be no way to verify. There's no way to lock it down by zip code, and even our zip code is bigger than the city. So the truth is, if you're signing up in January, you're going to get in. It's really for the people who hear about it last minute or forget or whatever. But the idea was that, this is a city event. Both of these are, and we want to make sure that we're giving opportunity to city people. And I think, now that people know that it's going to sell out, we've had the people, and this is something that's very helpful for our program directors. When people sign up last minute, it's extremely difficult, because you're trying to scramble. You really don't know your numbers. An event selling out is awesome because you're like, okay, I've got 400 people come in. This is how much I need of this and this. And, we don't need to do registration at the door. It's awesome. So when we have, if we can create a culture of people signing up early for events, and not only that, those people who sign up early are the ones, they're going to be the seers. Oh, I'm going to this thing, you should come. When people are signing up last minute, that makes it difficult. At the same time, it's, you don't want somebody showing up in the Batman costume the night of the thing, like, oh, I can't come in, and that's particularly true with like the daddy-daughter dance or something like that, where we'll get, dad, oh, I totally forgot to buy the tickets, and they're like, come on, dad. But I've done stuff like that too. So, but the more we can encourage people to sign up early, it really helps with registration, and it helps us as program directors kind of know what to expect. It can be really difficult when you're looking at being close to the bare minimum on the class, so and then you're kind of hoping that 3 or 4 more people show up to make the class run on the last day. There are a lot of recreation departments that will cancel a class before it even starts, or even a week out. And in a lot of ways that does make sense, but in some, trying to be open to everybody and realizing the hectic lives that we all live, and, you knew that you should have signed up early and you didn't. We've really tried to be forgiving in that way. But, when you do have a sellout crowd, you're not used to it, it becomes an issue. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you. I was just wondering if there's any feedback.
Yeah. No,
I have a quick question. I had
Yeah.
a question about that too, but you pretty much answered everything. How does Y go about recruiting new members? As far as it's a partnership, at least in Delaware, with the city of Delaware to run the rec programs.
Right.
How do you go about? I'm guessing there's lots of people in Delaware that have no clue of everything that's going on.
Yeah.
How do you get that information out to them? I know some municipalities have an insert in their local paper. some may do something else. What does
Right.
the Delaware Y do?
So we rely on a lot of different forms of communication. We have become very savvy with social media and utilizing that. So we actually have a partnership with Lee here at the city, so we can post specific events for the city. For example, like the Mother Son Superhero Party, we'll post on the city website or on the city Facebook page, on our Facebook page. Of course, we have the websites so if you want to go seek the information, we want to make sure that it's there. If you come into the Y, there's a whole board and we put everything on the board. So it's not like, here's the Y stuff and here's, we just kind of have it all out there. We have, anyone who's ever taken a class gets put on and given us their email, they'll get the Y newsletter, and that newsletter will contain the happenings that are coming up. So that's another way. In the past, when we first started here, we had an insert, and it was in different locations. But the sense and the feeling was that by spending money on things like the Facebook ads and things like that, it was that people weren't finding the insert information. We've also done things like we'll occasionally put into like the water bill or something like that, hey, basketball registration is coming up, and things like that. So
I guess that's what I was curious about was
Yeah.
we participate in Y programs, whether
Yeah.
it's soccer or
Sure.
softball or whatever. So we get all of that stuff, but how does, talking to a
Joe
neighbor
Blow.
who's not
Right.
involved in the Y, had no idea you did a daddy-daughter dance.
Right.
And obviously with little girls was very interested.
Sure, great.
But without me telling him about that, he had no way of knowing, or I guess my question was, how would he know? How does,
Right.
unless he actively says, what is the Y doing today,
Right.
doesn't just randomly find out about that information?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be similar to, most recreation centers where you're going to go and, find out you're going to go to the website and see what's going on. We do try to actively reach out through things like social media, through the emails and things like that. But right, you can't get everybody.
Sure.
I guess a super long time ago, they used to actually send things to people into their house, but that's the economy of doing that is, you're spending $10,000 in a mailing for a program that makes $2, so we do rely a lot on, and just from my perspective as a program director, I'll set up a program and I'll do the complete media blitz. And, I've got my own personal email list for anyone who's taken any of my programs. And the only people that will show up will actually be the people that I have grabbed and talked to and brought them there. It's so like people, it's really, you need to feel like what's going on, have a friend, have some sort of buy-in to it. So, and that's been, I think every day we get a little bit better at that, at explaining, that every program that we offer is available to everybody. You don't need to be a member. That's something that takes a lot of education. And sometimes you have to do it one person at a time. We're at First Friday, I'll have the information out for whatever's going on. Oh, well, I'm not a member. Oh, it's okay. You don't need to be a member.
I think that's where there is a big disconnect, because with the Y taking over some of those city recreation things that
absolutely.
people don't realize,
Well-
I think a lot of people don't go seek the information because they're not a member of the Y, so they
Right.
don't think that there's stuff there that they can go do. So that's something that,
And if you don't
Brainstorm.
mind, I guess what we've also discussed in part of and Allison was there in our city staff and YMCA staff meeting last week. That's something that we talked to the Y about in terms of, can we get that information onto the city's website? Instead of the city just saying, here was the city programs that we run, could we get the YMCA's programs and put them on there as well? And Roger mentioned it there at the end. I mean, they are downtown with community outreach, I guess you would call it, doing the First Friday events, trying to push that word out. Roger and I sit every year at the Jug Week up at the fair, in the fair booth, trying to get stuff out. Now, I know that's a September deal, and but but they do that as well. So they do try and do more of the face-to-face instead of the Facebook and
Yeah.
Twitter and stuff. And I know that, Lee, whenever they get something to Lee, I think he does a pretty good job of getting it out there. But, being in the Parks and Recreation department here forever, the flyers and everything, we had the same issues, in terms of we mailed them out, we put them in the little flyer that hangs on your mailbox. We tried it all, and it just didn't get the word out. You got to rely on that word of mouth and people getting that word out to everybody that that's what you're offering.
And then there's also the city recreation on the actual Y website as well.
Correct.
But are you talking about we're also trying to put it on the official city website? Okay.
It's a work in progress, but
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to work towards, is getting some of their stuff put on ours.
Yeah.
Because that's the biggest challenge. And Josh, you mentioned a little bit, but that's the biggest challenge, is getting people to understand you don't have to be a YMCA member to
Right.
partake in anything that they offer. And that's where, we, staff is trying to work on how can we get that broken down and figure out, well, you don't have to be that member,
Right.
and that's a big hurdle. But like I said, we just discussed that last week. So it's something we're aware of, something we're trying to address.
And I think, just from, I've been here almost since the beginning, and, at first we tried to make a very solid, here's the Y stuff and here's the city stuff. And that was very intentional, because we just we wanted to make sure that the city stuff was run the exact same way it was run before, at the same prices, at the same description. I mean, with Jeremy leading it, it was essentially 98, 99% exactly the same. As the relationship has grown stronger, now you start to see, okay, your Y membership gets you into Mingo now. Okay, so that's a big melding over. Now we're talking about not just having on the city recreation page, we didn't want to put any Y programs because we didn't want to seem like, well, now you have to be a Y program member to do everything, But now we're saying, you know what, it's actually might be better just to put everything on one page, as opposed to say, here are the things that have a city price and here are the things that have a member price. Instead of saying, you need to go look here for your 3rd through 6th basketball and here for your K1, let's just put it all together. Yeah, some things will have a member price, some things will have a city price. And I think in the beginning it made a lot of sense to have that, but as the relationship has grown and, the things that we've been able to do with the partnership, it just makes a lot more sense. We do a lot of things now where we used to have, this department had a flyer and this department had a flyer, and we're just trying to really combine that stuff. So if you see that there's, a basketball program, you're going to see that there's a ballet program too, things like that. And I think, you'll see that there's rec basketball for the city, but there's also Y basketball, and you'll see it on the same page. So that's definitely the direction that we're going. But that was, there was a reason why they were separated. But then you're kind of trying to educate twice almost.
Can I ask a question too? Is there a reason why you can't go into the schools to do that kind of thing, to advertise, send things home with the kids? Or
So the schools do electronic, newsletters and stuff like that, and we will send things to the schools. When big things are happening, basketball, some of the bigger programs, we try not to inundate them, because we could probably literally fill up their entire newsletter with things that are happening at the Y. But yeah, definitely we do. We have a good relationship with Jen Rui over there, the different, like if it's a teen thing, we'll make sure to send it to the teachers or to the middle schools and things like that.
I think in some respect too, you have to be sensitive about that, because if the Y starts doing that with the schools a lot, then the Optimist Club is going to want to do it all the time, and this club's going to want to do it all the time. Before long, they've got 17 different clubs that's approaching them to try to get to the schools to do that. I know a lot of other municipalities have the same issues.
And that's what happened to us a few years ago. The school said you can't pass anything out.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that door's starting to slowly open back up, but that did happen a few years ago. So
Yeah, and you don't want to just over inundate people with things. And I mean, I think the reality is too, you're going to see, you see a flyer, you see something 900 times out of, 901, you're going to say, oh, that's not really for me. It's when somebody says, hey, I'm doing this, or hey, you should do this, or this is specifically for you. That's when things start to happen. We've all become so shut off to advertising. We're just like, we have a initial like, no, that's so being the face to face when we're at that, and Tom met him today. We actually have a new position which is going to be exclusively focused on outside the Y relationship building, which is something we've all done as directors. But we're very excited about this position. There'll be for example, I always go to First Friday, but he'll be kind of the official person to go to always First Friday. So if I'm not able to, or I'm normally down there with the teens trying to do something, so I'm focused on the teens, so I'm not really able to sometimes, push this and that. Zach will be there. So I think that will be long-term. That's going to be a really, really big improvement there too. We also this year hired a media specialist just for us. We have a downtown marketing specialist team. But Mitch, if you've been into the Y, you've seen the big screen TV, kind of almost not that big. That's pretty big. But there's, he's making really sharp looking stuff, not kind of my, Word document, cut and paste. I mean, it's really good looking stuff, which makes us, the advertising matching the quality of the program. So.
And I definitely don't want to drag this on, but one more thing. I brought it up when I first joined the board because I didn't see a lot of it, and I think it's gotten a little bit better, but I still think there's a way to go. And I don't know if this is a Parks and Rec board thing or if this crosses over into City Council, but I'd really like to see the YMCA do a better job. They do a decent job now of recognizing what is brought to the residents of the City of Delaware by the City of Delaware. The fact that you run rec programs and that the Easter egg hunt may be brought to them by the City of Delaware, but recognizing that it's taxpayer dollars.
Mm-hmm.
That is, you have this not because the Y is putting it on, we're running it, but it's because the City of Delaware gave them that money. It's the taxpayer money that's doing that. And just make sure that the city gets the proper recognition for it. Again, I don't know if that's an us thing or if that's a city thing, but I think it's important to the residents to know that their tax dollars are paying for this service.
I think it's definitely part of the oldest board to help with that, because this relationship is still in its infancy, I'd say.
Mhm.
So those are areas that I think can be helped to be addressed
Right.
with this board's interaction with the Y, the city.
Right. And I could be wrong, but it's my understanding that, the City of Delaware may put on an Easter egg hunt or breakfast with Santa, whatever the event may be, but the Y runs it as part of its deal with the city. So just making sure that those events, that the citizens know this is this is put on for you by the City of Delaware, or in conjunction with the City of Delaware, just making sure that the city gets its proper recognition.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point and something that I'll definitely keep. I'm normally on the mic, so I think most of the time I'm pretty good about talking up the city and our partnership, but I think that's what we're able to do with our connections with the Ys and the other branches and the strengths there and the strengths of the city and everything that we have. I mean, we're doing things that you're not seeing in other places. Mm-hmm. And so anytime we can highlight that relationship, and it is it is taxpayer funds. That's what pays a good part
Right.
A lot of branches don't have a position like me to do the things that I do. And a big part of that is because we have some taxpayer funds that pay for part of my salary. So, I agree 100%.
Okay, anything else? All right, thank you, Roger.
Cool. Thanks, sir.
We will move on to the parks update. Stacy.
All right. A couple things. You'll see some pictures that a little blurry. Apologize for that, but those are some of the pictures of the projects that we have going on. You'll see the first one there is the clubhouse out the Hidden Valley Golf Course. Renovations there started a couple weeks ago, changing some ramps around, remodeling the inside of the clubhouse, adding a restroom to the upper level, changing around some of the kitchen stuff. Not changing anything in terms of menu or anything like that, just some reconfiguration up there. It's going to be a pretty neat project once it's all done. We're actually going to have a barn out back that we can actually store the equipment in instead of leaving it outside. Project that's been needed for several years. Look to have that done hopefully by March. The second picture you see there is blue limestone. That's some of the new equipment, play equipment that was put in. That is part of the CIP. Those are some of the things that I'm going to discuss with you here in a little bit as well. If you see there what we added, the neat thing about this is there's two new toys that we never really had in any of our parks. We're trying to get more ADA compliant in terms of some of the stuff that we offer. Everything we have is ADA compliant, but we want to have some other things that we offer. You'll see the green chair to the left of the picture is actually an ADA chair. The swing set that you see to the right, that's an expression seat. I don't know if you guys have seen those or if I've talked to you about those, but that's actually where the adult can sit on one side or the older child can sit on one side and the younger child can sit on the other. So it's interaction between them. That's new to any of our park systems. I think we installed 2 or 3 of those, if I remember correctly. And then the little thing to the left that looks like a tree, that's actually a spinner. So you can jump on top, hold on, spin around in circles. Pretty neat. Next picture there is, if you haven't been out, and I know I tell you guys all the time to get out there, but that's Veterans Park. That's the latest picture out there. You can sort of see the right there in the center, that's the dinosaur head that'll be going behind the play toy for the sledding or for the slide and the hill back there. You can see the dinosaur footprints in the splash pad. That's the splash pad area. You see the shelter right behind that. The all-inclusive play toy is behind, directly behind that. To your left there is what we're referring to as the 3-season shelter. It's not the same as Mingo. It's an open-sided shelter, but has a fireplace on one side and a fire pit on the front side. And then to the left again is the restrooms are on the back side of that building, closest to that 3-season shelter, where you see the 2 dark windows there. That's actually the concession stand. Immediately to the left is another window for the concession stand. That's the first door that goes into the concession stand, and then you got a little overhead door that leads into the storage room and splash pad area. The center there is the amphitheater. That's sunk down in a couple steps. There'll be all kind and up front to the beside the light is the pull-off area. So when you pull in, that's where you can drop your kids off there. And then there'll be plenty of landscaping. The trail will actually come back in there and connect and go back around. It'll go around the entire perimeter of this area. The last picture is the greenhouse. I'm still waiting on the electrical contractor to finish that up. But that's where all the pots that you see up on 2342 will go, cannas, elephant ears that we do ourselves. And then we seeded a lot of our plants this year in hopes to get them growing out there this year as well. Any questions on that?
Stacy, Veterans Park is still scheduled to open Memorial Day weekend.
Correct.
Do we know, I know we discussed it at one time, when the splash pad would be running though, May through, so it would be running from then. Do we have a close
Right
date?
now it's it's the same as the pool right now.
Okay. So it would be like Labor Day.
Yes. But that's subject to change.
Okay. Okay.
Our monthly report, not going to go over a lot there. Forestry division, the 133 hours on general tree maintenance. A lot of that was pruning. Responded to 23 customer service requests. Oak Grove Cemetery, we had 6 interments last month. Majority of the time down there was spent on leaf collection. And then, of course, Hidden Valley Golf Course last day was 11/19 of 15. And the renovations are ongoing.
And Stacy, we don't have a for sure open date for the dog park, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
It's spring, but staff has discussed that, I read an article in last week's dispatch that was one of the Columbus ones was actually shut down because it was wet out there a week or so ago. And the dogs destroyed the turf out there and they actually had to shut it down. And so that's something that we've been talking internally. I think we discussed it at last week's meeting as well. It's just something we're going to have to play by ear. And if it's a really wet spring, I push that date back a little bit, but that's something that we can discuss further.
I have another question about that then. There's no way after it's open, if we have weather like that, to actually close in Austin, is there?
It's like right now, I mean, we have the gates locked.
Okay.
I think it should be something that we probably, not only do we post them, but we post it prior to saying the city will, if grounds are wet, city can close.
Stace, last time we talked about the increasing the prices of buckets of balls and all that at the golf course.
What I decided to do there, and hence why Mr. Holman's here tonight, he's going to talk to you about some staffing stuff that is going to be going on. So I want to table that until we move a little bit further ahead with that.
Any other questions? Okay, then we will move on to discussion with the city manager.
I wanted to take an opportunity to talk to the board tonight about some organizational changes that have been put into place with the 2016 budget. I think I had spoken to Allison a couple of months back when we were contemplating making some changes, and wanted to elaborate on that tonight and get this board's input. And we are, so the history is the city had always had a Parks and Recreation Director. And this goes back 40 years ago. They had always had that position. And in the early 2000s, the position was split, and we established a Grounds and Facilities Director and a Parks and Recreation Services Director. This was similar to the Dublin model. And we appointed Steve Beard, who was then the Parks and Rec Director, as the Grounds and Facilities Director, and recruited for the position of Rec Services Director. And that's when we hired Randy Smith. I don't know how many of you remember Randy, but Randy was here a number of years and had responsibility for the recreation side of the house. And Steve Beard had responsibility for the Grounds and Facilities side. When Steve retired, we took the facilities and grounds piece and moved that into Public Works. And And then that was really where it's been ever since. And we established the position, we reestablished the position of Parks and Rec Director, recognizing that one unified position was a better fit for the community. And we hired at that time Darren Hurley. Darren is now in the city of Worthington, working as their Parks and Recreation Director. Darren was with us 3 years and left as we were transitioning to establish our partnership with the YMCA. And when we established the partnership with the YMCA, we didn't see the need to refill the exact position of Parks and Recreation Director because we had, the Y was now doing contract recreation services for us as well as their own recreation offerings. And we didn't want to get into the situation that a lot of communities faced where you have a full-fledged Parks and Recreation department, you have a full-fledged Y, and there's overlap and duplication and competition and in other communities. Realized that it was better to build a partnership with the YMCA and strengthen what they're good at and try to make it work so that, I think that you would ask the question, Joshua, about how do we market what the city is doing, or what the SWI is doing on our behalf. And that's come up at council meetings, and it's something that we still are addressing. But I guess the evolution has been that we had this traditional standalone director position. We split the positions to fit what we needed to do at that time. We reestablished the position, and then the position when the Y came on board, we didn't fill. And I think what we underestimated at the time when we were talking about this collaboration with the Y was we underestimated what we were trading off on the parks side of the programming. Not so much the recreation side. We traded off some on the recreation side, not having our own department and our own staff. But we at least had in the Y an entity that could help us with that. What we didn't realize is that what we were losing in terms of that executive level position on the park side, and Stacy can speak to that, he's spoken about it before, is everything kind of got shifted to the park superintendent. And everything is a lot. As you know, we have not shrunk our park system. We have expanded our park system, and we're proud of that. And I think over the course of the last 24 months, we've realized that there is still a great need in this community to address the needs of the parks and natural resources, as well as parks programming, which then bleeds into kind of what the Y is doing for us. So as part of the 2016 budget, I recommended, and council ultimately voted to establish the position of Parks and Natural Resources Director. And that's a full-time director level position, which will report to the city manager and oversee the city's Parks and Natural Resources Department, and which includes all of what Stacy does, but it also includes, as we're developing the job profile now, it includes the partnership with the YMCA. The question that you raised tonight about what are we doing to market what the city is contracting to the Y for, that would be working with this board. The responsibility of this director level position is to help us with that as well as other tasks and other responsibilities. So we will, our plan is to move forward with the recruitment of that position beginning in the next week or two, and we'll leave the position open for about 6 weeks. We'll do a nationwide search. We'll cast a very wide net, and we might end up with somebody locally. We might not end up with somebody locally. When Randy came to us, he came to us not from Ohio. There's a lot of talented people in the state of Ohio. There's a lot of talented people in Michigan, a lot of talented people all around. So we will get the best qualified candidate for the position. And one of the responsibilities of the director will be the principal liaison with this board. They'll also have liaison responsibilities with the Shade Tree Commission. And eventually we're going to be establishing a cemetery board. They'll have liaison relationships with them. But their principal relationship in terms of a board will be the Parks and Rec Advisory Board. So it would be my hope that over the course of the next several months, as we go through this recruitment process, that we can continue our conversation that we started last year about the role of this board. You know, how do you establish an effective board with 11 people on it when you have so many different things going on? You have this relationship with the Y, you have contracted recreation services, then you have all of the parks pieces, now you have the cemetery. It's a you know, there's a lot there. And so I see the board, hopefully after we get somebody hired, to help build that relationship and help kind of redefine what this board's role should be in setting recreation and parks policy for the city. And so the recruitment will, as I said, begin later this month, go through early March, and the goal will be to have somebody on board by on or about Memorial Day. It's just kind of, that's the goal. I mean, these things take a while. The process is a lengthy one, but it's important because you're selecting an individual to lead the department and become part of the city team, and that takes time, and there's a lot of effort that goes into it. There'll probably be some type of an interview panel that will be put together, and what I would probably do is seek a member from the Parks Board to sit on that panel to provide feedback to the city in terms of the candidates. But I'll follow up with Allison or whoever the chair is regarding that as we move forward. But I really want an opportunity to talk to you about this change and tell you that we're excited about it. I think it's going to be a good move for the city in terms of reestablishing the focus on our parks, natural resources, as well as our relationship with the YMCA. So, and I've had some, Stacy's been very involved in this process in terms of helping us with the position profile, taking a look at that, getting his comments and his input. I met a couple of weeks ago with the executive director of the Ohio Parks and Recreation Association, the executive director, to let him know about the position as well as get his feedback. I've talked to a number of other, some other colleagues, as well as some other parks directors, parks and rec directors, to get their input in terms of what we should be looking for, because this is not a parks and rec position, but recreation is an important part of it. So we don't want to downplay that, but we also want to make sure that the person coming into it doesn't come in and say, well, I'm going to establish a recreation department in the city of Delaware. They have to realize we have a partnership. We want to strengthen that partnership. We have contracted recreation services. We can expand that and work on that, but we're not hiring a director to kind of reestablish that position. So that's where the parks piece is emphasized, and natural resources, because as you know, we're blessed with a lot of natural resources, the river being one of them. And I think we need to utilize those resources as best we can. And I think having somebody in that position of leadership and management will help us with that, help Stacy with the work he's doing. So anyway, that's a kind of an overview of what we're looking at. I hope the board is excited about it. I think it'll be it's a good timing, I think, because this board is relatively new, I think, really, it was, right?
Mhm.
I mean, given where the previous boards have been, it's relatively new. So, any thoughts, questions, observations, comments about what we're?
I think it's a good thing. I mean, I think you can utilize the leadership that the role will provide as far as direction of parks, and obviously whether they're familiar with the area or not familiar with the area, just having anybody new will bring in fresh ideas and new ideas, something that somebody here may not have thought of before, and then be able to fulfill the I don't know, the duties or obligations that, may be slipping through the cracks right now, whether it is the relationship with the Y, making sure everything gets followed up on, or anything else on those lines. I think it'll be a good thing for the city.
And I think this is a perfect time to, and Tom and I had discussed this, and Alice, and I know we were going to discuss this a little bit later, but what we've also talked about, and the last time Tom was here and talked to this board about possibly not splitting, but possibly having a subcommittee of parks and a subcommittee of recreation and possibly a third subcommittee, whether it be special events or what have you. And that's something that we were going to discuss tonight as well, is to see, and if we would host, the gut feeling that I got from this board was they don't want any more meetings. They want to do it the same night as if we did something like that, they wanted to have it the same night, maybe, start the meeting at 7 and it's the first hour is these subcommittees, or first half hour is these subcommittees. and we can work through those issues of, what's your concerns with the YMCA, or what's the YMCA doing great that, or what programs do they have coming parks in? What do we have on the parks end that, needs addressed? What kind of play toy do we want to put at Blue Limestone, or, those kind of things, and get a little more in depth, and then come back to the board as a whole within a half hour, 45 minutes, whatever we decide, and bring that back and work on it as a whole group. It is part of the things that we've been discussing as well.
Yeah. I just think, and we started this conversation with this board a year ago about an 11-member board. How do you make an 11-member board more effective in terms of what its role is? And I just see a natural split with the recreation side of the house, if you will, and the parks and natural resources side, and using the expertise and background and experience of the board members in those two areas to help inform us and the why about what we can be doing better. Because it's hard sometimes with 11 people around a table, hearing updates, to really get into the substantive ways that you can improve those things. Joshua, things you were talking about earlier, about how do we better communicate to our residents about contracted recreation programming. I mean, that gets mentioned at the meeting, there's general agreement, but it's the follow through and how do you make that work most effectively. And I still think there's merit to this split, subcommittees, whatever you want to call it, working groups within this board where those kinds of things could be discussed and addressed and action taken, so that at the next meeting, somebody can come back and say, these are the steps we're taking to address those areas, and with input from this board. But
Stacy stole my thunder. But I mean, to the point, I would just add, this did come up in our meeting that we have prior to this with the city and at the Y, and that and part of it too is the feedback that we keep getting from the board that we just don't feel like we're like, what exactly is our role and what should we be doing, and we don't, I know we mentioned it before, that it doesn't really feel like we're doing anything. We just come and get the updates and then we say, okay, great, see you next month. So this was really an idea too of having more time for us to brainstorm and actually come up with some ideas that we could start implementing. And then, so we would meet in the smaller subcommittees and then come back. Like Stacy said, we could figure out the schedule in terms of how we're doing it. If we're doing a subcommittee every other month, if it's, depending on that, we can get those details worked out. But just in general, do you guys like that idea of being able to have a subcommittee where we can brainstorm more and come up with ideas versus just the formal setting where we don't really, I don't think any of us feel like we're really accomplishing a lot when we're in this meeting. We kind of give out ideas, but like Tom said, we're not really following through on stuff.
Would these subcommittees then meet different times of the month?
So that's what we need to figure out. I mean, we can figure out how we want to do it. Typically, I mean, subcommittees meet. I mean, if we could do it where you're meeting a subcommittee monthly, or if it's every other month, and then we come back as the board. I mean, we would have to work out those details to see how it works for everybody, but definitely, I mean, it would be.
You could have phone conferences and things like that. too.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends. I mean, with the Parks and Rec, so we had talked about 3 committees, and then I think we're down to maybe 2.
Yeah, the 3 is ambitious. I mean, I
Yeah.
think the special events
Yeah.
could be kind of,
Yeah, the part of the Y stuff,
Yeah.
I think would go with that. And plus the special events are, you're gonna correct me if I'm wrong, Roger, but I mean, they're more sporadic. It's not like something that's, you have a special event every single month.
Well, but it wouldn't be
Close.
Y too. It would be the triathlon
Yeah,
that's
and
coming
then
in.
how
But
does
the
the-
Y is not running, but it's
how
coming
does the
to the
board?
city.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And that could be.
Yeah, so we had talked about doing a special events, a park, and a rec, but then after further review, we decided, can we just break it into parks and rec, and then the special events would fall within those categories.
So here, and I was going to bring this up in comments, but it can be applied to here. Here's my concern, and I don't even know if this is rectifiable or not. My concern, and the one thing that I noticed since I've been a part of this board, which has been, this is my 12-month, whatever, this board seems very sporadic, and I'm not going to single out anybody at all, but the level of commitment is not where I'd like to see it be. I know that the 3rd Tuesday of every month is the Parks and Rec Advisory meeting. It's on my calendar for the next 2 years that I was a part of this term. I don't know if there is I don't know if there's anything we can do about it. I don't know if there's any rule, I don't even know the appropriate term, that can be put into place that says there are 2 excused absences a year. Things come up, they always do. I have no idea what's going on, with anybody, but I do know that it seems like oftentimes I get emails questioning whether or not we're even going to have a quorum tonight, which I think is disappointing in my opinion. And the fact that we're looking at breaking down the board into doing more things, I think it's a great idea if there's commitment from the board. This evening, I don't feel like there's commitment from the board to do anything like that. I don't know if there are other members in the community that do want to step up and be here 12 times a year, possibly more. I don't know. I don't get the feeling that the commitment right now is there.
I mean, you can probably speak better to this than I can, but there was a 2 absence in a row policy, I think, when we signed up or something, wasn't there? Like,
There's something, I don't think it's written, I think it's just understood. And typically when someone misses a lot of meetings and I say something to Michelle
Right.
and she talks to the mayor and the mayor typically calls them and
Yeah.
questions
And then
whether
we-
they're still
yeah.
interested. And
You're
tonight,
right.
I knew about one. I knew about Judy.
Right.
She had a school.
And I don't even know if it's in a row. I mean, I think if you take a look, at least, again, this is 12 months for me. If you take a look at the 12 months that I've been a part of this board, there are individuals on the board that are here 5 times out of those 12. Now, it may not be 2 in a row, but even so, if they're not here for 10 out of the 12 meetings, that's disappointing to me.
And again, this is a big board, but again, regardless of the number, you still have to have that commitment.
What size are your other boards typically?
7, 5, 7.
So how did this one end up being?
I
11?
think it was trying to accommodate the broad, you had Ohio Wesleyan University with a representative, that they wanted to have a representative. You had a school representative. So you started with, Delaware City Schools. So you took what otherwise would be a 7 or 9 member board and you grew it by a couple just by adding those members. So
And having-
there's nothing so all of this is changeable. It is rectifiable. I mean, there's the one issue, which is member commitment and how you address that. Then the other is there's nothing it is written in stone, I guess, if you will, that you have the board composed the way it is, but there's nothing to say that board couldn't be smaller or bigger or subcommittees or whatever. But
And I would just point out, I mean, I think that I agree with what you're saying, but that's kind of where we keep getting stuck and we keep discussing because there's a monthly meeting that I attend as the chair with the Y and Linda and Jackie, the assistant city manager, and them are there, and we basically go through a lot of the ideas that have been coming out of the board or discussing what's going to be discussed at the upcoming meeting. And they can attest, I've brought that up a couple different times of how do I get the board engaged? Because I know everybody's busy, but like you said, you made a commitment to be on here for the community and that. And so, you know, the Y comes in and always asks for volunteers for stuff, and we're not even getting, we went and made some hot dogs at the Halloween events. But I mean, we're not, there is. And I, as the chair, have been asking around as well, because I'm trying to figure out how to get everybody engaged as well. And so that was one of the things that came up with through this, is having these separate committees, because the feedback that we hear a lot is that there's two things. Is one, we're not really sure what we're doing. We don't feel like we're really impacting the community at all by just coming and attending here. And we have people involved. So this was an idea of how we could start having these smaller meetings where we could start having some of these ideas. And I guess, I mean, we can look into the commitment and the board and who's on it and how all that works as part of this as well. I think this is a good time to start looking at all this and figuring this out in anticipation of the new role that's going to be filled, who's going to be working with us. So we actually have some time here between now and Memorial Day.
Yeah, really, that's kind of what you want, is because the new director coming in wants to know that obviously that there's a commitment on our part
Right.
to.
Well, I mean, would you want that, I mean, this discussion and breaking it apart and making decisions now, is this something you would want the director of parks and natural
Well, I
to have
don't
input
think-
on how? he'd
I
like
think
to see
they'd want input, but I don't think you need to wait. And you all have been on, you all know generally the role of the board. I think you've had some good ideas about ways to strengthen that and make it better. I think, obviously, if somebody comes on board and they've got some suggestions, you'll be open to those, I would assume. But I think they're going to want to know that, you know, you've got a committed board members, and you know, I think the more that you can do to better define the role and get those things in place now, I think you're going to be more productive later on. Otherwise, you're going to wait 5 or 6 months to figure that out. So.
Yeah, I know this discussion of the separate committees was when we first came on. I don't know if we didn't actually have a nice conversation about it. We didn't discuss it deep enough to figure out, and we devoted it down.
Well, at the time, the discussion
Everybody was
completely
new,
split.
I
Yeah,
think.
everyone was new, and then it was splitting it completely into two different boards. So there was a parks board and a rec board, and the feedback at the time was that we wanted it all combined because they are intertwined.
Right.
And so we didn't want to completely separate them. But this subcommittee idea is more of just digging deeper into what we can do. Everyone has ideas, everyone hears stuff out in the community, but I don't think that having this monthly formal meeting, we're accomplishing what maybe we all want to be accomplishing. So if we have the subcommittees, then we can actually kind of bring ideas to the table with everybody here in the monthly meetings and say, the parks discussed, we want to have music at Mingo, whatever, and that type of stuff, so that we can get more into that versus just hearing our updates. We love the updates.
Correct. And I mean, there's so many different ways that you can do it. You know, we've talked before about, do we need to meet every month as a Parks and Rec Advisory Board? You know, you could almost, you know, and I'm just throwing stuff out there, but you could alternate, like, you know, January's the subcommittee meeting night, and then February is the whole park board meeting night. I mean, there's just so many variables, so many different things that we can do with that. And you're 100% right. I think that's what it was the intertwine of those two, excuse me, divisions, if you will. And we didn't feel, or the board didn't feel, that they wanted to be split into just a recreation and just a parks one. They wanted to be together on that, so.
I mean, I don't mind doing a couple meetings a month, you know, doing my subcommittee and then joining it. I mean, that doesn't bother me.
Well, the every other month could work.
I
The even numbers or the subcommittees meet, the odd
Yep.
numbers of the full board meets and gets the reports, and because really, it's not like the planning commission. I mean, I don't want to downplay the board, but there's the type of business that comes before this board is a lot different than it comes. Every board has a different function, but I think you'd find yourself more almost productive if you had those subcommittees making recommendations to the full board and then the full board taking action. and engaging that way is.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that the every other month thing can kind of work out. I mean, we're having a hard time, you know, we've got 5 here tonight. We canceled a few meetings last year because of quorums, and I think add another night, it's just going to add to that. I think you need to stick with the Tuesdays and then decide, but that's just my opinion.
But it's still a meeting every month. It's
Right.
just one meeting, 1 month's going to be your
Focusing
respective
on your
subcommittee, and then the other meeting is the full board, but it still requires the commitment. Because if a subcommittee of 4 or 5 and only 2 people show up, then you're going to be in the same kind of boat you're in now with.
We probably need to get everybody's commitment.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
I think this is a
Before you
full
can
board
even,
discussion.
Make
It's,
a decision.
Yeah, you
So
can't-
I'm wondering though, so we have a meeting in February again. Fingers crossed, everyone comes. In the next month, then, I can work with the staff, with Jackie and them, and
Yeah.
discuss.
well, I think, Allison, you might, as the
The
chair, you could, you know, on our behalf, on the board's behalf, send out a note to your full board and just indicate that February, you know, attendance is important, but we'd like to have everybody at the February meeting and talk about this and underscore the importance of regular attendance, because it's not going to be effective if you don't have
And
that.
Allison, you and I can work because we
Yeah.
talked about doing that.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, so over the next month, we'll discuss that. I mean, get that email out, check everyone's commitment. And then February, we can talk more about the subcommittees, but if we can, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us can kind of just think about it over the next month as well of how you think that would work, and so that we have some ideas in February when we have the larger group here that we can kind of share how the subcommittees would work too.
So is there, I didn't want to prolong, are there any other questions or of me, or comments, observations?
I think we can.
So we'll keep you posted, and I'll be in touch with you, Allison, in terms of if we do go with this panel interview,
Okay.
getting a representative from the board to assist us with that process.
Okay.
So thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. I think we probably kind of already covered this, but are there any other staff comments?
Yeah, you really haven't covered. This sort of does tie into what we were just discussing, though. You know, CIP, capital improvement projects, those are things that, you know, I come to you guys, I tell you, okay, this is what we got going on. With that, what I'd like to do is start working towards, you know, I have some dollars already allocated for certain things, but it just says, like, you know, for example, next year, because we do a 5-year CIP, just so you guys know, so planned out through 2020. But in 2017, there's $15,000 right now for Smith Park. That's to replace some play features and stuff like that. Mingo Park's $180,000. That's looking at replacing the big play toy at Mingo. I've pushed that out for the past 2 years because it hasn't needed it. So that could be something that gets pushed out again. But to get your guys' buy-in on that and decide, you know, what do we want to put in that park? What do you guys think needs to be in that park? You know, as well as, you know, this year, Lexington Glen's got $40,000. I'd like to see the board get involved with that. And what we had discussed last week was, you know, we meet with HOAs from time to time on that to see what the HOAs would like to see in their park. But as well as, you know, get the park board there that night or whenever we do that, and get the feedback from the park board with that as well to see what goes in there. Instead of, well, Stacy chose impression swing and, you know, so, but to get everybody's feedback on that from, you know, if it's a community park, of course, a lot of times we do get that as well, but, you know, that's what you guys are as the community. So that, a couple other things. Next month, Chad Greeden with our engineering department is scheduled to be here to go over the bikeway master plan that has been going around for, seems like several months now. So I got him scheduled for next month. January 28th, Linda, correct me if I'm wrong, January 28th is we're meeting with all the organizations that utilize our facilities, from soccer to lacrosse to Optimus football, Delaware City Schools, St. Mary's Schools, YMCA. Missing anybody?
I don't think so.
To see what their needs are going to be so that we can get a schedule worked out so that we're not missing things. So, that's another thing on the recreation end, going back to rec and parks. Yeah, we intertwine, we work together on that, but, maybe the recreation end is the one with the special events going, okay, don't forget the cystic fibrosis walk is next month. And so it's already on the schedule, and we don't overbook and have a soccer tournament or a tennis tournament at the same time as that walk, So what I wanted to do with that is, everybody's, well, it's January. Yeah, but if I wait till March to have that meeting, it'll never happen. So we scheduled that. I had Linda help me on that, and we got that meeting scheduled for the end of this month. I think Allison was.
Stacy, one of the other things is because Delaware has become a destination spot for triathlons, marathons, Ironman. We need to be cognizant of those when we're planning stuff around the parks too, because if you have 100,000 people in the city, plus you got a softball tournament going on, we just need to know what traffic impact is going to be. So we're going to try to get all those on the calendar too, because the special events committee has a lot of those dates already. And we have a committee that's made up of different city staff members that meet with the organizations 3 months out before their event. So.
Well, and our park improvements that we have done to date have really attracted a lot more use in our parks. And just wait till the splash pad opens up and the dog park opens up. But it's just, you've seen the use of tennis. So it's just, our parks are, it's a good thing, so yeah, those are some of the things, some of the things that are in the CIP next year, as well as, or next year, in this year's 2016 is dredging the pond at Hidden Valley Golf Course. It's not exciting, but that's something that, we are doing. The new play equipment I've referenced, CIP equipment wise, we're getting a new 3/4 ton truck. I just placed that order today. We're going with a crew cab truck. If you've ever seen my mowers driving around town, they have usually the 20-foot trailer on the back with 3 mowers, 3 people crammed in the front of the truck. Just, for safety reasons as well, let's just get them in the back. Efficiency too, that I can start sending weed eaters with the same truck, same crew, getting that stuff done. We getting a new trailer as well. I don't know if you've seen the last snow event, but we bought in 15 we bought a utility tractor that now we're able, if you've seen the one, I'm sure you have, Cassie, that OWU uses. We bought something similar to that so that the guys aren't out in the elements removing the snow. They got a broom attachment. Actually, he's got a broom attachment, a blade, a stump grinder. So multi-use piece of machinery for us. I just placed the order Friday for another one of those. So we'll be able to get all the sidewalks and all that good stuff that you guys seen on our tour. We're getting 6 new mowers this year in the parks end, 2 new mowers at Oak Grove. I ordered all 8 of those mowers this morning, so that's coming as well. So a lot of things going on, stuff I usually don't get into it with the board, I guess, or discuss with the board, but these are things that, get input, get feedback. The other one is we have monies in this year's CIP to do community trails, which is on State Route 37 from Westfield out to Trotters. I'm hoping that will be part of Chad's discussion with you guys next month. And I do believe now I am done. Did I forget anything, Linda?
No, I think you did it all.
As you can tell, I go to Linda like Linda, remind me to talk about this, remind me to talk about that.
Okay, member comments?
I just have one question. As far as the equipment for the playgrounds. Is there any swing that is capable of holding a wheelchair?
They'll have that at the, that's gonna, I thought that was, oh, it's a.
That's not a
swing.
wheelchair.
Not that I've ever,
But there's
not that
a-
I've
I'm
ever
just
seen.
curious.
Not that I've ever seen, no. Not saying they're not out there, but I've
But there
never
are
seen.
wheelchair accessible toys at the splash pad.
Right,
There
you
will
can
be, but
wheel
it's not
them
like
up
a-
on ramps,
yeah.
but I mean, I don't know if there is.
We
but-
got a sway and play, don't quote me on that, but you go on it and
Yeah,
it sways back and forth and you can sit in it. It looks like a little ship
yeah.
and you can sit in, but I've never seen a swing set like that. You
Or
ever
just,
seen
like,
one?
just like
You
a
know, the
swing.
only thing that I know of is, I believe it's Emerald Park in Dublin is 100% wheelchair accessible. The entire playground is,
Mhm.
but I don't know if there's any swings in it. I'd have to drive by and take a look. But
I'm
that's
going
the
to
only one.
OPRA January 31st through the 3rd or 4th, so I'll find out while I'm there. It's at Kalahari.
That'll be the top of
Huh?
the list.
No, that's not, you can't put a wheelchair on.
Yeah, I'm talking about, yeah,
Correct.
yeah, because I
I don't know
mean,
if they make-
I just thought it would be kind of neat if there was something, because we do have a lot of kids in wheelchairs in the city.
Mhm.
Just to be able to put them on, and a lot of them like that motion.
Well, and that's why, and I hate saying I, you guys know I say we a lot, but that's why I fought so hard for the play toy that's going at Veterans Park to be all inclusive. And why you see some of the shifts and some of the things that I'm trying to put into the parks themselves, so.
Anything?
Thank you for ordering the basketball hoop for
Yeah.
Kensington.
Yeah.
Any idea?
Meant to bring that up. No, I don't
ETA?
understand why it's not here yet.
We actually got one at our house for Christmas. I was going to invite the
Neighborhood.
neighbors over. Come on over, guys.
I don't have anything additional other than what we already discussed, so.
I actually had one question for YMCA that you reminded me of. I know that just in the short time I've been on the board, there's been a lot of volunteer opportunities, but I tend to, because of my job, have to plan 6 months out. And most of the things I learned about that I think I would have liked to take advantage of, I didn't find out soon enough. I'm sure there's a lot of those things that are the same time of year generally. Is it possible to get a 6 or 12 months kind of outlook on volunteer opportunities, at least the big ones?
Yeah,
at some point?
there's a calendar on the city page with all of the major big events
Okay.
for the city side of special events. So those are planned at least a year in advance. So I could get you a copy of that for sure. But it's on the website, and we
Can we send it out with the meeting minutes, Linda?
so.
Just know there would be a lot of like athletic teams that would love to participate in the volunteer opportunities,
Sure.
and we just don't know soon enough with our schedule. And it's a learning process for me as well. So I think being able to get that word out could be helpful for everybody.
Yeah, and with the volunteers, again, it's almost, like Linda volunteers and everything, but she's part of the community of volunteering now. So, going to volunteer for something's kind of scary when you don't know what's going to happen. And I get that, and I think that's an area that we need to improve. For example, our Teen Leaders Club that volunteers at everything, they volunteer, half the time they're volunteering just being with their friends, And so we need to figure out how do we create a volunteer community here in Delaware of adults, of seniors that are coming, yes, they get back to the city, but they know that, they're going to see their friends, that they're going to feel like they belong, and that their time is going to be well valued.
Those teen volunteers are pretty impressive, though.
They are. I agree.
Breaking down boxes and whipping things around and.
And I think that's an area that we need to improve on. I think we've got the teams down, and it's actually something we're talking a lot about is how do we, especially like the millennials and our baby boomer generations who are retiring now, they both have more time than
Well,
most.
And I will just jump into the volunteer because part of it too, I think we run into is a lot of these events when we have small kids, we want to take them to the events, and then it's hard. Like that's what I think we both did at the Halloween one, where we kind of were like going back and forth. So it's like we weren't, so it would be good if we could get some different age groups and all of that as well.
I just see that being something that Ohio Wesleyan students really buy into. I mean, it's a huge
Yeah.
volunteer community anyway, and having another opportunity to involve them in the community, I think would be great.
I'm good. I think I've talked enough.
All right, then can I have a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
All right, meeting is adjourned at 8:27.
I think our commitment level has been exhibited tonight.
Yes.